The animal control officer's van pulled up just as Maya collapsed on her kitchen floor, her service dog's desperate barks echoing through the walls, the same barks that had saved her life countless times before. But Karen Whitfield had made sure those life-saving alerts would be silenced forever, armed with a noise complaint and a vindictive smile. She had no idea that her petty revenge was about to destroy the one thing keeping her disabled neighbor alive, or that the universe had a brutal lesson in karma waiting for her. Maya Chen pressed her palm against the cool kitchen counter, fighting. The familiar dizziness that warned her blood sugar was plummeting. The numbers on her continuous glucose monitor flashed red dangerously low. She reached for the orange juice in the refrigerator, her movements already becoming sluggish. Zeus began his alert sequence. The golden retriever's sharp, rhythmic barks filled the small apartment. 3 quick barks, pause. 3 more. The pattern he'd been trained to perform when her glucose levels dropped to critical levels. Maya's vision blurred as she fumbled for the juice container, her diabetic alert dog's voice cutting through the fog that was rapidly claiming her consciousness. "Good boy, Zeus," she whispered, her words slurring slightly. "Good boy." The barking continued dirgent, insistent, life-saving. 3 floors below, Karen Whitfield slammed her coffee mug down on her pristine granite countertop, the sound echoing through her immaculate kitchen. The barking from the apartment above had been going on for 2 minutes now, and it was the 4th time this week. She'd had enough. Karen was a woman who prided herself on order, control, and getting results. At 62, she'd spent her entire career in corporate compliance, crushing rule breakers and maintaining standards. Her retirement hadn't softened her edges, if anything, it had sharpened them. She'd moved to Willowbrook Apartments specifically for the quiet residential atmosphere advertised in the brochure. The barking stopped abruptly. Karen's jaw tightened. She'd been documenting these incidents for 3 weeks now, noting times, duration, and decibel levels on her phone app. The building had a strict no-pets policy except for certified service animals, and she was certain that Mutt upstairs was nothing more than an emotional support animal, a fake service dog that some millennial was using to skirt the rules. She'd seen the girl before, Maya something or other, young, maybe late 20s, always looked tired. Karen had noticed she wore a medical alert bracelet, but lots of people wore those for minor conditions, anxiety probably, or some made-up sensitivity. The girl seemed healthy enough, walking around without any obvious disability. Karen pulled out her phone and dialed the building management office. "Willowbrook Apartments, this is Janet." "Janet, this is Karen Whitfield in 3B. I need to report a noise violation. The tenant in 6B has been allowing their dog to bark excessively. This is the 4th incident this week." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Whitfield. Can you give me the specific times?" Karen consulted her notes. "Monday at 7:23 a.m., lasting 3 minutes. Tuesday at 2:15 p.m., lasting 4 minutes. Wednesday at 9:45 p.m., lasting 2 minutes. And just now 10:30 a.m., lasting approximately 2 minutes. I'll make a note of this. We'll send a warning notice to the resident." "A warning notice." Karen's voice rose. "Janet, I've been a resident here for 8 months. I pay my rent on time, I follow the rules, and I expect the same from other tenants. That dog is clearly not a legitimate service animal. Mrs. Whitfield, I understand your frustration, but if the dog is registered as a service animal, any dog can be registered online for $50, Karen interrupted. "I've done my research. There's no legitimate certification process. People abuse the system constantly." Janet's voice grew cautious. "We have to be very careful with service animal situations. There are federal laws, there are also noise ordinances, and lease agreements. That dog is disrupting the peaceful enjoyment of my home." Karen ended the call, but she wasn't satisfied. She'd dealt with enough bureaucratic incompetence in her career to know that building management would do the bare minimum. She needed to escalate this properly. She opened her laptop and began researching. 20 minutes later, they could issue citations, remove animals from properties, and even press charges. For service dog fraud, the online complaint form was thorough. Karen filled it out methodically. Nature of complaint: fraudulent service animal claim, noise violation, address 412 Willowbrook Lane, apartment 6B. Description: tenant claims dog is service animal, but animal displays no trained behaviors consistent with legitimate service dogs. Frequent barking incidents suggest lack of proper training. Suspect fraudulent documentation. She uploaded the audio recordings she'd made on her phone and the detailed log of barking incidents. In the additional comments section, she wrote, "I am a retired compliance officer with extensive experience in regulatory enforcement. I am confident this is a case of service animal fraud. The tenant appears to be a healthy young woman with no visible disabilities. Request immediate investigation and removal of animal from premises." Karen submitted the complaint with satisfaction. She'd built her career on holding people accountable, and she wasn't about to let some entitled millennial break the rules just because she'd bought a fake service dog vest online. Her phone buzzed with a confirmation. Complaint #AC-224-1847 submitted successfully. Investigation team will respond within 72 hours. Perfect. Upstairs. Maya sat on her couch, Zeus's large head resting on her lap. The glucose tablets were finally taking effect, pulling her back from the edge of hypoglycemic shock. Her hands were still shaking, they always did after a severe low. Zeus remained alert, his dark eyes watching her face for any sign that her blood sugar was dropping again. "Thank you, buddy," she whispered, scratching behind his ears. "You saved me again." Zeus had been with her for 3 years, ever since her type 1 diabetes had become so unpredictable that she'd nearly died twice from severe hypoglycemic episodes. Her endocrinologist had recommended a diabetic alert dog after the second incident. When she'd been found unconscious in her apartment by her landlord, who'd come to check on a water leak, the training had cost $30,000 and taken 18 months. Zeus could detect the chemical changes in her scent that preceded dangerous blood sugar swings, alerting her up to 20 minutes before her glucose monitor would register. The problem? His barking had saved her life at least a dozen times. She pulled out her phone to check her glucose levels on the app connected to her continuous monitor. Still climbing, but stable. She made a note in her diabetes log. Severe hypoglycemic, episode 10:28 a.m. Zeus alerted. Treated with juice and glucose tablets. Recovery successful. Maya had been living with type 1 diabetes since she was 12, but the last few years had been particularly challenging. Her blood sugar had become increasingly unpredictable, with severe lows that could happen without warning. She'd lost her job at the marketing firm after collapsing during a client presentation. The disability payments barely covered her rent and medical expenses, but Zeus made it possible for her to live independently. She looked down at her service dog, who was still monitoring her carefully. The golden retriever wore a clearly marked service dog vest whenever they went out, and she carried all his certification papers in her purse. She'd never had anyone question his legitimacy before. The barking incidents had been increasing lately because her diabetes was getting worse. Her endocrinologist was considering switching her to a different insulin regimen, but the adjustment period would likely mean more frequent episodes. Zeus was her lifeline. Maya's phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "How are you feeling today, honey? Your blood sugar app shows you had a low this morning." Maya had given her parents access to her glucose monitoring app after the second emergency room visit. They checked on her constantly now, worried that one day Zeus might not be enough. "Okay," she texted back. Zeus caught it early. "Taking it easy today. Good boy. Give him extra treats from us." Maya smiled, but the expression faded as she heard voices in the hallway outside her apartment, loud, official-sounding voices. She moved to the door and peered through the peephole. 2 men in uniform stood outside her door. Animal control officers. Her blood ran cold. "Zeus, stay," she whispered, though her hands were already shaking again, not from low blood sugar this time, but from pure terror. She opened the door with the chain still attached. "Maya Chen?" the older officer asked. "Yes, I'm Officer Rodriguez. This is Officer Blake. We're with County Animal Control. We've received a complaint about your dog." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "What kind of complaint?" "Multiple noise violations and a report questioning the legitimacy of your service animal. We need to conduct an investigation." "Is a certified diabetic alert dog," Maya said, her voice barely steady. "I have all his documentation, ma'am. We're going to need you to open the door so we can speak with you properly." Maya's hands trembled as she removed the chain. Zeus appeared beside her, alert and protective. He could sense her distress, and his body language had shifted to guard mode. Officer Rodriguez stepped inside, his partner close behind. The barking cut through the night like a blade. 3 sharp barks, pause, 3 more. Maya's blood sugar had plummeted to 52 milligrams d.L. dangerously low. She fumbled for glucose tablets in the dark, her hands shaking so violently she could barely open the container. Zeus's alerts had become more frequent over the past week. Her endocrinologist had started her on a new insulin regimen, and her body was struggling to adjust. The unpredictable swings were getting worse, not better. It was 2:47 a.m. 3 floors below. Karen Whitfield sat bolt upright in bed, her face twisted with rage. She'd been patient. She'd followed proper channels. She'd given that girl every opportunity to control her animal. No more. Karen grabbed her phone and dialed 911, double quotes, 911, what's your emergency? 412 Willowbrook Lane, apartment 6B. The dog is out of control, barking aggressively. I think someone might be hurt. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? I'm in 3B. I can hear the attack happening above me. The dog sounds vicious. Please send help immediately. Karen hung up and smiled grimly. She'd learned in her compliance career that the way you framed a situation determined the response you got. Animal control during business hours was one thing. Emergency responders in the middle of the night were another entirely. She pulled on her robe and slippers, then positioned herself in the hallway outside her apartment. When the police arrived, she wanted to be there to guide their response. Upstairs, Maya was slowly recovering from her hypoglycemic episode. Zeus had stopped barking once her blood sugar stabilized, but he remained alert beside her bed. Maya's CGM showed her levels climbing back to normal, range 73 milligrams, DL, and rising. Me again. Zeus's tail wagged once, but his ears were still perked. Something had him on edge. Maya heard the sirens first, then the heavy footsteps thundering up the stairs. Her blood ran cold as she realized they were coming to her floor. The pounding on her door was violent, aggressive. Police opened the door. Maya's hands shook as she pulled on her robe. Zeus immediately moved into protective position beside her, his body tense but controlled. His training kept him calm, even in high-stress situations. I'm coming, Maya called out, her voice trembling. She looked through the peephole and saw 3 police officers, their hands resting on their weapons. She opened the door with the chain still attached. Ma'am, we received a report of a vicious dog attack. Are you injured? What? No, there's no attack. My dog is a service animal. We need you to open the door and step outside, the lead officer commanded. Maya's legs felt weak. Think there's been a misunderstanding. Ma'am, open the door now. With shaking hands, Maya removed the chain. The officers pushed inside, their flashlights sweeping the small apartment. Zeus remained perfectly still beside Maya, his training overriding every instinct to protect her from the perceived threat. Where's the dog? The lead officer demanded. Diabetic alert dog. The officers stared at the golden retriever, who sat calmly, despite the chaos around him. One of them lowered his flashlight. This is the vicious dog, Officer Stevens asked. Someone called about a dog attack, the lead officer said, confusion evident in his voice. There's no attack, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. Zeus was alerting me to a dangerous blood sugar drop. He's trained to bark when I'm going into hypoglycemic shock. Ma'am, someone reported hearing aggressive barking and suspected an attack in progress. The barking wasn't aggressive. It was medical alert behavior. Officer Stevens examined Zeus's service dog vest and documentation. This appears to be legitimate, he said quietly to his partner, but the damage was done. Zeus immediately sensed the change and whined softly, pressing against her leg. I'm sorry for the confusion, ma'am, the lead officer said. We have to respond to all reports of potential attacks. In the dark, Zeus's head in her lap. Her glucose monitor showed her blood sugar climbing dangerously high. The stress response was wreaking havoc on her system. She heard footsteps in the hallway and looked through the peephole. Karen Whitfield stood outside her door, still in her bathrobe, with a satisfied smile on her face. Maya's phone buzzed. Another text from 3B. That was just a taste. Keep your mutt quiet, or next time, I'll tell them it bit me. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Maya's hand shook as she read the message. Karen had called the police. She'd lied about an attack to get them to come in the middle of the night, to terrorize her while she was recovering from a medical emergency. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Karen was trying to kill her. The next morning, Maya sat in her endocrinologist's office. Seeing Maya look so defeated. "The stress is making everything worse," Maya explained. "My blood sugar swings are getting more extreme. Zeus is having to alert more frequently, which is causing more complaints, which is causing more stress." Dr. Kim reviewed Maya's glucose logs on her computer. "I can see the pattern. Your overnight readings are particularly concerning. The stress hormones are interfering with your insulin absorption. Is there anything else I can do? Any way to manage this without Zeus's alerts?" "Maya, you know the answer to that. You've had 2 near-fatal episodes in the past year. Your hypoglycemia unawareness is severe. Without Zeus, you wouldn't be alive to have this conversation." Maya broke down crying. "My neighbor is trying to get him taken away. She's filing false police reports, threatening me. She doesn't understand that Zeus isn't a petty's medical equipment." Dr. Kim's expression hardened. "What do you mean, false police reports?" Maya explained the previous night's incident. Dr. Kim listened with growing anger. "This is medical discrimination," Dr. Kim said firmly. "What she's doing is illegal under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it's going to kill you. Kim, you write a letter explaining Zeus's medical necessity." "I'll do better than that. I'm going to call your building management and explain exactly what's happening. Then I'm going to contact a disability rights attorney I know." But Maya shook her head. "I can't afford an attorney. I'm barely covering my rent and medical expenses on disability. Maya, listen to me. If they take Zeus away, you will die. This isn't an exaggeration. Your diabetes is too severe to manage without his alerts." That afternoon, Dr. Kim called Willowbrook Apartments and spoke directly with the property manager, Janet Morrison. "I'm calling about Maya Chen in 6B, Dr. Kim said. "I understand there have been complaints about her service dog." "Yes, we've received multiple noise complaints from another tenant." "Janet, I need you to understand something. Maya has severe type 1 diabetes with hypoglycemia unawareness. She will die." Janet's voice became cautious. "We're trying to balance all tenants' rights. There's no balance here. This is a life-or-death medical situation. The dog's barking is federally protected medical alert behavior of the ADA and could result in wrongful death. Doctor, I understand your concern, but we also have to consider—" "Janet, let me be crystal clear. If Maya dies because you allowed harassment of her service dog, your company will face a federal lawsuit. I will personally testify that her death was preventable and directly caused by discrimination." The call ended with Janet promising to investigate the complaints more thoroughly. But Karen had already moved to her next phase. That evening, Karen sat in her apartment with her laptop, researching Maya's background. She'd found Maya's LinkedIn profile, her college information, even her family's social media accounts. The girl was 28, had worked in marketing before becoming disabled. Diabetes. Despite her earlier reluctance to learn about the condition, she needed to understand her enemy. What she found was ... disturbing type 1 diabetes was an autoimmune condition that destroyed the pancreas's ability to produce insulin. Without insulin, blood sugar could rise to fatal levels. But too much insulin could cause blood sugar to drop dangerously low, leading to seizures, coma, and death. Maya's medical records, which Karen had glimpsed when the police officers were looking at Zeus's documentation, mentioned severe hypoglycemia unawareness. Karen researched this too. It meant Maya couldn't feel when her blood sugar was dropping to dangerous levels. Zeus's alerts. Maya could slip into hypoglycemic shock without warning. In her sleep, she could fall into a coma and die. Karen closed the laptop, trying to push away the uncomfortable knowledge. She'd built her career on facts, on holding people accountable to rules and standards. The facts were clear. Maya's life actually did depend on that dog, but Karen had also built her career on not backing down. She'd spent 40 years being right, being tough, being the person who enforced Maya woke up in the hospital with an IV in her arm and Zeus lying on the floor beside her bed. "Hey, buddy," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "You saved me again." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "You're awake. You had a severe hypoglycemic episode. Your blood sugar dropped to 28 milligrams DL. Your service dog activated your emergency alert system, which saved your life." The memories came flooding back. Karen's voice in the hallway, the reporters trying to keep Zeus quiet while her blood sugar plummeted. Her hands started shaking. Maya's heart sank as she... The video started with Karen speaking confidently to the camera. The dog barks constantly. The tenant claims it's a service animal, but I've done my research. These people fake disabilities all the time to get special treatment. Then Zeus's desperate barking began, and Maya watched Karen's face as she dismissed it. See, this is what I have to deal with every day. That dog is completely out of control. Been brain dead. That dog literally saved her life. Maya's eyes filled with tears as she watched the final exchange between the reporter and Karen. Ma'am, you call this a fake service dog? But we just witnessed it perform a life-saving medical alert. Do you have any comment? Karen's whispered. Response, I didn't know she was really sick. You didn't know? Or you didn't care to find out? The comments section was brutal. This woman literally tried to kill her disabled neighbor. Karen Whitfield should be in jail for harassment and filing false police reports. That poor girl almost died because this monster couldn't handle a dog doing its job. Zeus is a hero. Karen is a sociopath. Maya scrolled through dozens of comments, each one more scathing than the last. Maya, I've been fielding calls all morning. News stations, disability rights organizations, lawyers wanting to take your case pro bono. I don't want to be famous, Maya said quietly. I just want to live peacefully with Zeus. You've become a symbol of disability rights, and Karen Whitfield has become the face. Maya's phone had been buzzing constantly with notifications. What about Karen? Maya asked. Dr. Kim's expression hardened. Her apartment building is considering eviction, and the district attorney's office has opened an investigation into her false police reports, fired from volunteering, but that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about you. Dr. Kim pulled up Maya's medical chart. Last night's episode was the worst you've ever had. Your blood sugar stayed critically low for over 20 minutes. You could have suffered permanent brain damage, but I didn't this time. Maya, the stress of this situation is literally killing you. Your glucose control has deteriorated dramatically since these harassment incidents began. Maya looked down at Zeus, who was resting, his head on her hospital bed. What am I supposed to do? I can't control what Karen does. Actually, you can. Sarah Goldman, she's one of the best in the country, and she wants to take your case. She thinks you have grounds for a federal lawsuit. I told you, I can't afford pro bono. And Maya, she thinks you could win a substantial settlement. She'd never thought of herself as a lawsuit person, but Karen's actions had nearly killed her. In the same building, what would happen to Karen? She'd face consequences for her actions. Federal charges for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, possibly criminal charges for the false police reports, and she'd have to pay damages for the harm she caused. 3 floors below, Karen Whitfield sat in her apartment with the blinds drawn, her phone turned off, her laptop closed. She hadn't left her apartment in 18 hours, not since the first death threat arrived in her email. The apartment building's management had already called twice. Someone had spray-painted disability hater on the building's entrance. They wanted her to move. In Oregon, Karen. What the hell is wrong with you? That poor girl almost died. I didn't know she was really sick, Karen had protested. You didn't bother to find out. You just assumed she was faking it because that's what you always do. The worst about people, the call had ended with her sister hanging up on her. Karen had built her entire identity around being right, being tough, being the person who held others accountable. But the video had exposed something uglier, her complete lack of empathy. Her willingness to destroy someone's life over a minor inconvenience. She'd spent the morning reading the comments about her online. Was annoyed. People like Karen are why disabled people are afraid to exist in public. The worst part was that she couldn't argue with them. The video was clear evidence of her callousness. A knock at the door made her jump. She peered through the peephole and saw a man in a suit. Ms. Whitfield? We need to speak with you about filing false police reports. The detective's expression was cold, professional. Investigation for multiple violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I need to ask you some questions. I want a lawyer, Karen said immediately. That's your right. But I should inform you that the federal prosecutors are considering this a hate crime. Targeting someone because of their disability is a federal offense. Karen's legs felt weak. Hate crime. Your actions nearly resulted in the death of a disabled person. That meets the definition of a disability hate crime. After he left, Karen sat on her couch in stunned silence. Federal charges, hate crime. She'd never imagined that her complaints about a barking dog could lead to this. She'd become a target herself now, the focus of the same kind of harassment she'd inflicted on Maya. But there was a crucial difference. Maya had been innocent. Karen was not. At the hospital, Maya was preparing to be discharged when Sarah Goldman arrived. The disability rights attorney was a small woman with fierce eyes and a reputation for taking on impossible cases. "Ms. Chen, I've reviewed your situation, and I believe you have one of the strongest ADA violation cases I've ever seen," Sarah said. "The evidence is overwhelming." Karen Whitfield's own words recorded on video. Her text messages threatening you, the false police reports, a preliminary injunction to prevent her from any further contact with you. She's legally prohibited from harassing you or interfering with your service dog. What about the criminal charges? That's separate. The DA's office is pursuing federal charges for disability hate crimes. If convicted, she could face up to 10 years in prison. Maya felt a flutter of something uncomfortable. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. She systematically harassed you, filed false reports, and put your life in danger. When Animal Control told her Zeus was a legitimate service dog, she escalated her harassment. She had multiple opportunities to stop, and she chose to continue. Sarah's voice softened. "Maya, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen what happens when people like Carr." 6 months later, Maya sat in the federal courthouse, Zeus lying calmly at her feet in his service dog vest. The courtroom was packed with disability rights advocates, reporters, and supporters who had followed the case that had become a landmark in ADA law. Karen Whitfield sat at the defendant's table, looking 20 years older than she had the night she'd first complained about Zeus's barking. Her hair was gray, her face gaunt, her expensive clothing replaced by a simple black suit that hung loose on her diminished frame. The past 6 months had not been kind to Karen. She'd been evicted from Willowbrook Apartments when other tenants threatened to break their leases if she stayed. She'd lost her volunteer position, her social circle, and her sense of self. Woman who had built her identity on being right, on enforcing rules, had become the poster child for everything wrong with society's treatment of disabled people. Judge Maria Santos called the court to order. "We're here today for the sentencing of Karen Whitfield, who has pleaded guilty to federal charges of disability harassment, filing false police reports, and endangering the life of a disabled person." Maya's testimony during the trial had been devastating. She'd described in clinical detail how Karen's harassment had worsened her diabetes, how the stress had caused more frequent hypoglycemic episodes, how the night Karen brought reporters to her door had nearly killed her. "Your Honor," Maya had said during her victim impact statement, "Karen Whitfield didn't just complain about noise. She systematically tried to remove my medical equipment that keeps me alive. She weaponized the police against me, filed false reports, and created a campaign of terror that put my life in immediate danger." The courtroom had been silent as Maya continued. "But this case isn't just about what happened to me. It's about every disabled person who has been told they're asking for too much, being too loud, taking up too much space." Karen's actions represent a mindset that treats disabled lives as expendable inconveniences. Dr. Kim had testified about the medical implications of Karen's harassment. The stress from these incidents caused Maya's glucose control to deteriorate dramatically. She went from having manageable diabetes to experiencing life-threatening episodes multiple times per week. Ms. Whitfield's actions had the same effect as tampering with a diabetic's insulin that could have killed her. The prosecution had presented overwhelming evidence. Karen's text messages, the recorded police calls, the viral video, medical records showing Maya's declining health during the harassment period. But the most damning evidence had been Karen's own words during her police interview. "I knew she claimed the dog was for medical reasons," Karen had admitted, "but I thought she was exaggerating. People fake disabilities all the time." Even after Animal Control confirmed the dog was legitimate, the prosecutor had asked, "I thought they were just being politically correct." That admission that Karen had received official confirmation of Zeus's legitimacy and chose to continue her harassment anyway had sealed her fate. Now Judge Santos reviewed the sentencing guidelines. "Ms. Whitfield, Your actions represent one of the most egregious cases of disability discrimination this court has ever seen. You didn't just harass Ms. Chun, you nearly killed her. Karen's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client is truly remorseful for her actions. She didn't understand the severity of Ms. Chen's condition. Counsel, Judge Santos interrupted. Your client was informed multiple times about the medical necessity of the service dog. She chose to ignore this information and escalate her harassment. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was willful endangerment. The judge turned to Karen. Ms. Whitfield, do you have anything to say before sentencing? Karen stood on shaky legs. For months, her lawyers had coached her on what to say, how to appear remorseful, how to minimize her sentence. But standing in that courtroom, facing Maya and Zeus, all her prepared words crumbled. Karen's voice broke. I spent my whole life thinking I was a good person. I thought I was just enforcing rules, maintaining standards. People were taking advantage of the system, that they were being dramatic about their problems. She looked directly at Maya. I watched you almost die because of what I did, and I still tried to justify it. I told myself you were faking, that it wasn't really that serious. Even when the paramedics said you could have died, I convinced myself it was an exaggeration. Karen's voice grew stronger, more honest. The truth is, I didn't want to believe you were really sick, because that would have made me the villain. It was easier to believe you were a liar than to face what I had become. Tears streamed down her face. I nearly killed someone because their medical equipment was inconvenient to me. I filed false police reports because I was angry that the world didn't revolve around my comfort. I am everything that's wrong with how we treat disabled people. The courtroom was silent. Even Maya was surprised by the raw honesty of Karen's statement. I can't undo what I did, Karen continued. I can't give back the months of terror I put you through, or the medical trauma I caused, but I can make sure that my name becomes a warning or reminder of what happens when we treat disabled lives as less important than our minor inconveniences. Judge Santos studied Karen for a long moment. Ms. Whitfield, that may be the first entirely honest thing you've said throughout this entire process. The judge turned to her notes. The federal sentencing guidelines recommend 18 months to 3 years for these charges. However, given the severity of the case and the fact that your actions nearly resulted in death, this court sentences you to 2 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Karen's legs buckled slightly, but she remained standing. Additionally, Judge Santos continued, you will pay $150,000 in restitution to Ms. Chen for medical expenses and emotional trauma. You will complete 500 hours of community service, specifically with disability rights organizations, and you will be permanently barred from filing any complaints about service animals. The judge's voice grew stern. Ms. Whitfield, you will also be required to attend monthly sessions with disability education specialists for the duration of your probation. This court wants to ensure that you truly understand the implications of your actions. Yes, Your Honor, Karen whispered. Furthermore, this case will be used as a precedent for future disability harassment cases. Your actions have helped establish that interference with service animals constitutes a form of assault on disabled people. Judge Santos turned to Maya. Ms. Chen, your courage in pursuing this case has strengthened protections for disabled people nationwide. Because of your willingness to speak out, other disabled individuals will be safer. As the court session ended, Maya stood slowly, Zeus immediately moving to her side. The golden retriever had been calm throughout the proceedings, but Maya could sense his alertness. The stress of the trial had affected her glucose levels, and Zeus was monitoring her carefully. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around Maya and her attorney, Sarah Goldman. Ms. Chen, how do you feel about the sentence? A reporter asked. Maya considered the question carefully. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about change. Karen Whitfield will serve her time, but more importantly, this case has established legal precedent that will protect other disabled people. Do you think 2 years is enough? I think what matters more is that the legal system has finally recognized that interfering with service animals is a serious crime. For too long, disabled people have been told to accept harassment as the price of existing in public. Sarah Goldman stepped forward. This case has resulted in the strongest disability rights ruling in decades. Courts across the country are now using Maya's case as precedent for prosecuting service animal harassment. Another reporter called out, "Ms. Chen, what's next for you?" Maya smiled, the first genuine smile she'd felt in months. "Zeus and I are moving into our new house next week. The settlement money has allowed us to buy a place with a yard where he can play. I'm also starting a foundation to help other disabled people navigate harassment situations." And Karen Whitfield. Maya's expression grew serious. "I hope she uses her time in prison to truly understand the harm she caused, not just to me, but to every disabled person who has been made to feel like their medical needs are burdens to society." As the reporters dispersed, Maya sat on a bench outside the courthouse, Zeus resting beside her. Her parents approached, her mother carrying a bouquet of flowers. "We're so proud of you," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "You turned something terrible into something that will help thousands of people." Maya scratched behind Zeus's ears. "We both did. Zeus never stopped being a hero, even when it made us targets." Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Kim, saw the news coverage. "Your glucose control has been excellent since the harassment stopped. Amazing what happens when you can live without fear." It was true. In the months since Karen had been arrested and the injunction issued, Maya's diabetes had stabilized dramatically. The constant stress that had made her condition life-threatening was gone. Another text arrived, this one from someone unexpected. "Maya, this is Janet Morrison from Willowbrook Apartments. I wanted to apologize for not protecting you when you needed it. We've implemented new policies to prevent this from happening to